Springer Chief Legal Analyst Dan Abrams and Rachel Scott, who's covering the Trump campaign. Dan, let me begin with you. Walk us through what kind of sentence Donald Trump will be facing.
Anything from no time to up to 4 years. We hear the term 34 counts. Yes, it's true. But effectively for sentencing, that's one count. It would all be served concurrently at the same time. There's no way this would be happening consecutively. The real question is going to be, even if there is no jail time, which most people expect no jail time.
First-time offender.
Correct. Low-level felony, lowest level in New York State. But the question becomes, okay, what about the possibility of home confinement? What about the possibility of community service? What about the possibility of probation? And question two is, when would it be served? And it would likely happen after all the appeals.
Well, and one other question on that. In Florida, convicted felons cannot vote until after they serve their sentence, but there's a quirk in the New York law that will allow Donald Trump to vote in this election?
Right, because Florida law defers to the place where the conviction occurred. The conviction occurred in New York, so New York law applies, and in New York, the only way you can't vote is if you are a felon currently serving time in prison, so it won't prevent him from voting.
And Rachel, remarkably and yet predictably, Republican politicians falling in line to support a convicted felon.
Donald Trump has a very tight grip on the Republican Party, and the indictments didn't really matter for most of the Republican Party. Neither does this conviction on all counts in this case. The Speaker of the House is second in line to the presidency, who showed up outside of that Manhattan courthouse to show support for the former president, called this a shameful day, saying this was a political exercise, not a legal one. Even some of Trump's toughest critics in the past, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, his former rival, who once said the indictment sucked out the oxygen out of the Republican primary, he blasted this verdict, as did Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who we know has a very icy relationship with Donald Trump. In a lot of ways, George, the Republican Party is now closer to the former president even after this guilty verdict.
What do we know about what Trump is going to do next?
You know, look, the reality is that the playbook for Trump remains the same. It doesn't really matter what exactly the verdict was going to be. The Trump campaign was going to fundraise off of this. He was going to use it as a rallying cry. But for a lot of Trump's advisors, this was something that was unthinkable a year ago. The idea that this case would even be brought to daylight. The idea that not only would he be convicted on all 34 counts, Donald Trump is now faced with something we have never seen before in American history. He is going to be campaigning as a convicted felon. And the question now, how does that settle with the American voters?
Completely uncharted waters. Thank you both very much.